Thank you. Okay. Oops. Let me just make sure I can see the chat and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. So this is about data and JETAA, and data can be cold and mathy, but I really want to put a human touch on this and sort of why. Some of you have been asked repeatedly by me for certain kinds of data, and thank you for your kindness and patience and all of my emails going to you, especially the chapter presidents. So let's talk data for a little bit and how we can use it to do better. And I think it really threads the needle nicely with some issues related to bylaws, with some of the conversations that arose organically yesterday, and just with chapter success, what we're going to do about new technology and other problem solving. So let's jump into it. So first, for the bylaws, I'm going off of the as they were, since we're in the middle of a transition, but our job as CRs is to strengthen the connection between chapters. And I think good data is a part of that. And in fact, data is actually written into our bylaws. You'll see in Article 6, Section 6.1, it actually says that the chapters are supposed to inform the CRs of chapter turnover and provide the relevant contact details of new members. So this has been built in there, but it hasn't necessarily been super enforced in any way. And I'm not interested in sort of any kind of punitive process for chapters not doing this. That is definitely not the angle that I am interested in here. What I do think matters is you would be more interested in doing this if you had a value add to it. What is in it for you to keep up on data? How can things be better, easier, more meaningful if we have good data? And that's really the heart of what I want to think about, the spirit of where I'd like to take this. So first question, go ahead and post in the chat. This is just like the Price is Right, don't go over, but how many chapter officers are there in the US? How many do you think there are? Throw it down, go crazy, embrace your typos. All right, we've got one guess. I'm gonna wait for one more guess before I go. So, okay, cool. Yeah, there we go, a bunch. So currently there are 140 officers across all 19 chapters. So again, a simple data point that was not readily available for a lot of people. I'm going to modify this a little bit. If we factor in position vacancies and the fact that some chapters also have a board of directors or steering officers or advisors, that number jumps to 198. So we have personal data on a fair few of them, Stephen. So we'll talk about that more. But, and this doesn't even count the country reps. So we just push over 200 if you count the CRs. So data. Some of you know from the quarterly forums that we had a little vote on different kinds of initiatives that we would like you guys to pursue. So this is a first example of data. It's really great if we know what you want, because although I am very passionate about a 50-state slides deck, it is the second least popular thing on this list. So I'm not going to pursue that, even though it's something that I personally like, but as your CR, I want to do what you find most valuable. We did a little survey, and actually only about 22 people, I think, filled it out. So I still leave it open for people to fill it if they want to have a go. But if you guys right now would want to vote for your favorite initiatives, you can still do that. And this ties into things like creating working groups to get initiatives done across the years with CRs and things like that. So to see that data again, this is it broken down a little differently. It's the same numbers. But you can kind of see it by passion. So the redder that the data gets, the more interested people were in that thing. And you can see that all of these topics in blue, the titles, are somehow involved in this year's NatCon. There's going to be breakout sessions tomorrow that deal with some of this stuff. And we're also going to do sort of a mini board officer exchange today as part of a complimentary session to this that I'm leading. So you participating in these really helps, but one of the challenges was contact information was very chaotic when I started as a CR and hadn't been updated yet, things like that. So that's why there was such a low turnout of people sort of giving their level of interest. And the other thing is that there is actually a chapter update form, and some of you know that I have been repeatedly harassing you to fill it out. And I want to talk more about why. Why go through the trouble to do this? Why does it matter? What does it mean to you? And what can we do if we have good data that you have also kindly filled out in some way, shape, or form? So this is the holy grail of chapter information. And it says all kinds of different things about the chapters that is in one convenient place. So all of your social media accounts are here that people can view, what kind of newsletter service you're using, what your website hosting platform is, stuff like that. There's potentially other things we could add. We also have information about when you do your elections, when new officers start in your chapters. This is all really important. So if you're taking a look on this now and you see data that's incorrect or that it says not available but should have data in it, you should go to that chapter update form and add to it. So a few things now is, let's take this data and actually do something with it. So I'm going to use a real example, but I prefer not to use chapter names when I'm kind of picking out different sorts of examples. But chapter X has a new webmaster, and one of their concerns is like, can I talk to people? How can I get help doing this? I haven't quite done this before, but they're excited about the position. So two things we need to know is, certainly I would assume in good faith that other webmasters would be happy to give a little bit of advice. But also chapters are using different web platforms, which is why the chapter update form asks for your web platform. And so I would, in this case, so if it's a Squarespace platform, I would reach out to those 5 specific webmasters because that would be more useful to that new person. And also note that we don't know 4 of the chapter's web platforms. So you might be one of those chapters, and it would be really great if we could know that, and you could fill that out in the chapter update form. And that opens up the possibility of doing a board officer exchange in the future where we have all the webmasters get together, let's say. So how this could kind of work now at the moment is I do know webmasters now because people have been filling out the form, but either say the chapter president or maybe the country rep hears from this new webmaster, and they're going to go to the president of a chapter. And then that chapter president is going to ask the webmaster if they can reach out to this new person. And that is a very lengthy, many-step process of just for someone to get help. And there's a lot of breakdowns that can happen along the way. People forget emails all the time, they miss them, could go to a spam, like all those kinds of things just happen in life. Life gets chaotic, we forget, all those sorts of things. So what could be useful if we had all this data sort of collected, if we knew all the officers, if it was kept up to date, the president of one chapter could just reach out to the webmasters of another chapter, or the country rep could do it for them, depending on what might be feasible based on the next few slides and how people are kind of feeling about some of this stuff. But it would be great to see more cross-chapter collaboration happening and good data, good contact info, knowing who is in what positions chapters even have, really helps facilitate that. Along with just things like we can help Claire know who all the new treasurers are, get all of that communicated, make sure it's seen to. And of course, Claire emails the presidents, but chapters are changing all the time. So having a commitment to maintaining a current log of our officers is really important. Oh, and let me jump up. Here is a link to the chapter info sheet for you guys if you want to look at it. And so here is the breakdown of what those officers look like. So these include the board of directors type positions, and it also, but it does not include vacancies. So this is how many, and you'll notice things like there are 11 webmasters, but 19 chapters. So surely someone in every chapter is managing the website in some way, shape, or form. So we don't have a perfect collection of everybody, but this is a great start, I think, to sort of maybe bringing webmasters together. Likewise, presidents and vice presidents probably need some time to get together to talk about their own abstract issues, sort of like how to delegate, how do I reach out to partner organizations to sort of be the face of my board, how do I help people thrive and succeed in their positions, things like that. So there's a lot of different positions have different needs. Communications and membership is sort of merged together. We were talking in the last session, a lot of chapters are using their newsletter distribution list as their de facto membership. So there's some overlap there, I think, that makes those 2 logical positions that can work together. And of course, board officer info. This is the second half of that coin. So there's the chapter info and the board officer info. So we have a spreadsheet that shows all the board officer information. It keeps track of the last time we updated somebody, things like that. When you fill out that form, I go in and I change this, or I try to look at your website. But I've noticed that some chapters have actually been removing chapter emails or even all of their officers. So it's getting harder to do that without asking you. So this really adds to the challenge of sort of keeping track. And I think that there was an organic conversation yesterday about like, what if we all like had a solid Slack? Should we all move to Discord? These are all great ideas, but without knowing who all the officers are and sort of really encouraging a big push to solidify onto a platform we could cross collaborate more, it's really hard to do that with out-of-date information. And in fact, keeping that information data is one of the most important things for us to make big gains in whatever large initiatives we might want to do in the future. And of course, the thing is we have the spreadsheet and I could share it with you and I want to, but I think there's a conversation there about access versus privacy. And so one element here is that I could make the spreadsheet only available to the people on the spreadsheet and make it view only, unable to share, that kind of thing. But again, I need to have the most up-to-date list. And if it isn't updated regularly, it's not just this one first time, it's a continuing thing that we're always working towards. It's a mindful activity that we have to do as part of our chapter onboarding processes to make sure this information stays up to date, that we know where to go to get it. And Chapter Central is a really important piece of that. So I wanted to show some other information about the chapters. But that's my pitch for like, we can do a lot more if we know who everyone is. And so some of the data we have right now, some future projects may be worth considering. Here is the breakdown of the types of emails y'all are using. And you can see most of you are using some kind of email. The big orange streak is something like secretary@JETAARockyMountain.com. That's what most of your emails look like. But 24 of you are just using your personal emails to do your work. And then I know actually a lot of the folks in that orange section, it's just email forwarding. It's not even it's not like going to an email account necessarily. And I think that that's important information to know because in the future, there may be some potential for US JETAA to host your emails, but we can't help facilitate that if we don't know who's who and what the layer of your technology looks like to create the opportunity for you to have full-fledged emails, and your personal email doesn't have to be the mechanism through which you do your work. A few other things. 22 officers, we have no idea what your email is. I'm not going to name any chapters or anything like that, but like, again, we're looking and hoping that this information can get filled out, that we can get that to 0. Other interesting information, we don't know one of the chapters election cycle. We don't know when the new officers start. Most of you have new officers who start in April, and then there's a sprinkling throughout the months for most chapters. Another interesting piece of data is we know that some of you use an appointment system for new officers. Some of you use elections, and 5 of you, we have no idea what you do. So again, that chapter info would be really great to fill out. And newsletter tools, likewise, 8 of you, we don't know what you do. Most of you are using MailChimp, and we have 2 other tools being used as well, but there is a lot of potential for a newsletter exchange. Newsletter editor exchange is something we could do in the future. So all the newsletter editors and membership coordinators can get together and talk shop and come up with best practices. But again, we can't do that if we don't have officer information and chapter information to create those new opportunities. Finally, because this is a very short session here, here's the breakdown of what we know about your social media accounts. This is what everyone's using at the moment, and we'll probably have to update this and think more about how to start getting that moving. But if you want to learn how to utilize these better, you now know which chapters are using them. And if we have the board officer information updated, you can actually reach out to those officers if they have a social media coordinator, things like that. And I think I'm very close to the end, and we have a next session that sort of bleeds into that. But I thought I might open it up and take at least one question from folks if somebody really wanted to throw something out there about all this data I threw out very, very quickly.
I put my question in the chat.
Let's see, just thinking out loud. Seems like we lack an organization both across and between chapters. What if we had a unifying platform? And actually, that's kind of the spirit of what US JETAA is meant to fill at some point, and that's a discussion we can have with them. But as they're in transition right now, looking for a new executive director, there's a lot of logistics to figure out there. So I think there's some potential. And Lindsay, what's your question?
Mine is less of a question and more of a comment.
Please.
In my job, we often have that question. We work with data a lot. I won't go into too much for details, but there is always the issue of, do we open it up or do we have it as private?
Right.
And of course, there are certain requirements including, occupational health or physical health data. But overall, we have managed a policy, and this is a large organization, but we have managed a policy where data is wide open unless it has very good reason to be locked down. And
Right.
what this also promotes is a certain level of transparency for individuals to have an opportunity to say, hey, I think something is being done wrong, and to anonymously report it, which is a requirement where we are. So that kind of mentality, while very unusual to think about in terms of something that maybe involves a lot of high security data, it is in fact very interesting to work from that perspective, and might be something we want to think about moving forward.
For sure. And I think that there's a big conversation there to have. So I'm not going to make that decision for us unilaterally about putting all of our sort of like officer information out there. I think we have to figure out like how we can approach that, and what's the spirit of like that information being available. It can certainly be the CRs sort of are the gatekeepers and lend a hand. And provide it when it's needed to people, but that the spreadsheet isn't just like out there in the open for people either. So I think that's another conversation we have to all work together towards. And so with that, there is a complimentary session that goes with this. So I'm gonna share again, and where's my screen share button? So we're moving actually right away into the next session, because I think the data portion and this portion, they go together, along with the idea of that cross-chapter collaboration and effort, and sort of becoming more than the sum of our parts. Share screen 2. And can people see what's awesome about being a chapter officer? Okay, great. So this is the second part of it. So we will be going into breakout rooms in a little bit. I'm just going to kind of walk us through this a bit. So if you may remember from the slides I was just showing you about data, we had talked shop a little bit about like you guys voting and letting us know what you want us to do. And one was promoting board officer positions. And I think that this is the sort of tagline. What's awesome, right? What's awesome about your chapter was what we asked for your chapter presentations. Well, what's awesome about being a chapter officer? How are we going to sell and market our positions? And I think there's, a lot of chapters out there that when the time comes for the transition, it's like, oh goodness, like how do we talk about it and not just beg for a new officer? How do we actually sell it and make it, recognize the joy we find in it? Because we're all here for some reason. And I think a lot of us deep down, we do find a certain happiness in making this commitment that we've all made, doing this volunteer work and whatnot. So again, here's that breakdown of officer positions. And what I'm going to have us all do is we will be going to breakout rooms, and we're going to basically be brainstorming what is awesome about our officer positions. How can we sort of describe them in these positive ways that are truthful and meaningful, and that sort of enable us to come back to this data set later as we start to build out our recruitment opportunities. So in these breakout rooms, there's going to be 7 of them, and they're going to be based on these officer positions. So you'll see there's a communications one, which includes membership managers, maybe social media folks and newsletter folks. There's presidents and vice presidents, et cetera. Sub-chapter reps have a place to go. And you can see for event planners, so if you're the book club manager or the language coordinator, that's kind of the place that seems most appropriate. And of course, social media people may fit in one or the other, but the point being that you should go where you feel you would do the best work. If you're a general attendee, you're more than welcome to join any of these rooms where you think you fit in the most. If you're a former officer, you should go to the room. You can go to the room that you used to do. And things like that. So everyone should feel free and comfortable to go to the room they want. And you're going to receive access to a set of Google Docs. And the docs are filled with all of these prompts for you. So something for you to react to, something for you to decide like how to build up like great statements about your position that you can utilize later. And we'll redistribute this in a more packaged way after you guys have provided information. But these are the kinds of prompts you'll see in the Google Doc. You guys are welcome to just write helter-skelter all over the place in the different sections. You can work as a team to sort of build something out. You can all focus on one thing, like the elevator pitch. It's all of your guys' choice, and while you're in the breakout rooms. So if a breakout room only has 1 person in it, you're free to leave and go to another one. Or if there's only 2 people in it, or if a breakout room is too big, you're more than welcome to depart and go to another one and kind of see where you fit in and where you feel like you can contribute the most. So I hope that this is something that we can actually turn into a product and make more useful. I know there are some smaller chapters out there that could really use the help of and have like a packaged toolkit ready to go to help them build up their officers and membership and things like that. So what I will do is I'm about to share a link in the chat. This parent folder here will take you to a Google Drive folder, and then choose the Google Doc that is the position you're most interested in helping sort of promote and talk about all the good things about it, all the good mojo, if you will. So Valerie, don't release the breakout rooms yet. So here is the link to the Google Drive folder. It should be working. Please alert me if it is not working. And Valerie, would you be okay posting the breakout rooms, opening those up? Great, and I've confirmed that it works. So you guys can assign yourselves to go into whichever breakout room you think is best for you. And shoot me a question if you're if you want to know anything or need some advice or guidance or anything like that.
I worship anybody who's willing and able to do
that. Okay, I think most everyone is back. So yeah, so welcome back. I hope you had some touchy-feely, gushy-washy, good vibes to write down. I don't need to be spotlighted for this part because it's kind of the group part, but I'd love to hear from people. Can just volunteer. You can write in the chat what maybe was like a highlight, like something you really recommended, thought of, something you want to bring to the attention of everyone else about some ideas you came up with.
I think we needed more time.
Yeah. Those documents are still shared too. So, and I think that there's room for maybe an officer exchange in the future to address this more deeply. So this was kind of like a taste of what maybe we could do if we have proper officer exchanges a little bit every year for people to come together to solve officer specific challenges. So did people like that? You can do like a thumbs up or a party icon if you think that was really useful and you would like to see more of it. But as long as people think that that was a really good format to maybe bring people together in the future, I'd love to work with you all to make it happen again. As long as you update your contact info so we can actually reach the appropriate type of board member. Please, please,
also,
please.
a reminder and a plug for quarterly forums that we now have an additional time frame that we can do that in as well. So it makes it easier for us to meet and exchange ideas.
Yeah, so all while being respectful of sustainability. Any other takeaways that people want to bring up?
I think big takeaways from the president's vice president grouping is that we have a lot of people who are interested. We have a lot of membership moving, and we're trying to find the balance of needing more volunteers while not being the entire volunteer group ourselves, but inspiring all of that, sparking creativity and inspiring the challenge of the new group. But we're excited that there are new people now, and we're trying to cultivate that talent while keeping everyone else thriving in their own space as board members.
Mm-hmm. And I see the longer session would have been nice because you guys were properly introducing, getting your JICO show guys on. One more takeaway. Is there something anybody wants to throw out? I think we're just at time for the session, so then I'll let you all go for one more moment of genius.
Well, I'm sure this is just something that occurs to people, but I think, yeah, like you said, it would be great to have more opportunity to talk to each other, because I think sometimes even if we don't have like a specific solution, just knowing other officers are kind of in the same boat and being like, oh, yay, like I have a supportive community. It's nice to be able to share that freely and then get confidence that, you know, we can help each other get forward and move on to the next thing.
Right. And I will say too, also that for the moment, right, there's a bigger discussion around how do we like give everybody like all of that contact information in a respectful way. But in the meantime, if you as a secretary or a social media coordinator are just like, I don't know what to do about this thing, or there's got to be an easier way to do this, you can always reach out and I can get you in touch with your equivalent members. So I can help facilitate those things too, because we do have a lot of that contact info. We've almost got all of it. We're actually doing pretty well with it. But thank you so much, everybody. So you're free to chill for a little bit, or you can head out and kind of get ready for the next session, whichever is good. But thank you so much for participating and kind of going for that ride together and throwing down as much as you could in those short little breakout sessions. I super appreciate it.